Hey, it's Gregory Bloom, the Beef Pro. Welcome back to another edition of the Beef Pro video series. Today we're going to go inside the beef plant and I'm going to show you the beef hindquarter fabricated into parts, subprimals. Now, in the previous video I showed you all of the parts off the carcass, but today we're going to slow down and show you the fabrication from the hindquarter down to the subprimals. So before we start, here's a quiz. Which of the following 4 parts come off of the beef hindquarter? Number 1, the peeled knuckle. Number 2, the tri-tip. Number 3, the top sirloin. Number 4, the brisket. Or all of the above, or none of the above. Answer that question after this. Let's go inside the beef plant. So on the beef carcass hindquarter fabrication, today we're going to see the subprimals cut, including the inside round, the gooseneck, the knuckle, the top sirloin, the bottom sirloin consisting of the tri-tip, the ball tip, and the flap meat, and the short loin, which is a strip loin and a tenderloin. So this is the posterior end of the carcass. You can see the round up on the top and the loin he just dropped on the table. That is a primal, and that is a primal. And we'll see the subprimals taken from the loin there on the bottom and the round here on the top. That there is a ponderosa hip. In Canada they call that a ponderosa hip. Here in the States they'd call it a baron of beef. It has the peeled knuckle on it, which he's taken off now, the inside round and the outside round. So he marks the peeled knuckle, takes it off. The peeled knuckle also can have on it the ball tip, part of the bottom sirloin. When you order peeled knuckles, you can order them with the ball tip on or the ball tip off. Most of the time they're ball tip removed though, because that ball tip is valuable as a sirloin. Now he's going after the inside round. It's also called the top round. When you enjoy beef jerky, you're most of the time eating one of these cuts that we're watching here, the inside round, the outside round, or the peeled knuckle. So there's the inside round. And now he's got the gooseneck left. And this is also called the bottom round or outside round. Most of the time though, here in the States, it's called the gooseneck. We'll watch that be further fabricated later. Now we have the hind shank here. Sometimes they bone out that hind shank. There's a lot of meat in there, and they'll put that in a hamburger. But right now, he's going to make bone-in hind shanks, center cut bone-in hind shanks for osso buco. So he cuts the bones off, the knuckles off the ends, and saves the center cut of the hind shank for osso buco. These bones here are packaged and sold as beef bones and used primarily for beef broth. Now we have the inside round on the table. We're going to take the bone out, but before we do that, we remove this piece of meat called oyster meat, which isn't very tender and usually goes into trim. We're going to take out this H-bone. The H-bone is also more commonly known as the pelvic bone or the hip bone. Now we have the gooseneck on the table, and the gooseneck has 2 parts to it, the eye and the flat. So the eye here on the left is easily removed by following the natural seam. Doesn't that look like a tenderloin? But it's not. It's an eye of round. And here's the flat. And we have to remove the heel meat from the flat first. That goes into grind. That's not very user-friendly as a roast, so they usually grind the heel meat. And there's the flat there on the right. Now we have the eye around being trimmed down to spec, 1/4 inch trim. This is one of my favorite pieces to oven roast. It's just such a great thing to make roast beef out of and slice thin for sandwiches. Now we're going to watch the loin be separated from the strip loin and the sirloin and the flap meat, the bottom sirloin. In the sirloin world, there's top sirloin. You've all heard of top sirloin. There's also bottom sirloin, and bottom sirloin means tri-tips, ball tips, and also flap meat. Those are all components of the bottom sirloin. Here he's cutting off the bones of this strip loin to make a boneless strip loin. I'm going to show you this fabricated one more time here. So we have the top butt on the right and the loin, the strip loin on the left, and on the bottom the flap meat, the bottom sirloin there, the tri-tip, the flap meat. And now we're going to cut these bones off. These are loin bones. have to be cut off to make a boneless strip loin. So when you enjoy a New York strip steak, you don't have a bone in it. Here we go one more time. The sirloin separated from the strip loin and the bottom sirloin cut off. They call this the chine bone a lot of times, but those are loin bones. Now we're going to have to remove by hand the remaining loin bones in there. Those are lumbar vertebrae bones, have to be removed. And they trim up this loin here. This is the same muscle as a ribeye, did you know? The longissimus dorsi is the longest muscle in the animal from the front to the tail, and is the ribeye in the forequarter, but in the hindquarter it becomes the strip loin. And he's going to remove these button bones now here, just these remnants of the bones when they cut off the chine bone that are still left there. And we're done. Now we're on the sirloin. On the sirloin, we have to remove the other part of the pelvic bone or the hip bone that was left when they cut the round from the loin. So they have to remove this bone here. And it's kind of hard to remove unless you're pretty good like he is. That's why you don't see bone-in sirloins on the menu, because that's pretty hard to remove. But he's going to cut the bottom sirloin on the left there off of the top sirloin. There's a piece of tri-tip right there on the left. And he's going to clean up that tri-tip. So remember, the flap meat is part of the bottom sirloin, and when you see in the retail store a roast or a steak advertised as a bottom sirloin roast or a bottom sirloin steak, it can be a tri-tip, a ball tip, or this flap meat. He's trimming the fat off that piece of flap meat there, and that'll go into ground beef. But there's the flap meat, and that's very popular today to make. You can barbecue it, you can do anything that you can do with any normal sirloin. It makes a great steak, it makes a great kebab, it makes great stir fry. It's very versatile and very flavorful. Hey, before you go, let's recap. So in the hind we have the round and the loin. And in the round it consists of the peeled knuckle, the inside round, and the gooseneck consisting of the flat and the eye. Then in the loin we have the top sirloin, the bottom sirloin, and the strip loin. How'd you do on the quiz I posed at the beginning of this video? Which of the following four subprimals come from the hindquarter? The peeled knuckle? Yes. The tri-tip? Yes. Top sirloin? Yes. The brisket? No. That's on the forequarter.